Hello and welcome. It's great to have you back. Today we are going to start learning more about pandas, and specifically we are going to look at slicing or how to extract subsets of data from a data frame. And we'll be using the .loc and .iloc commands here. We'll also use booleans to see if we can filter certain information from a data frame, and we'll look at the way in which we can copy an existing data frame. Finally, we'll look at different ways in which we can change the values of elements inside a data frame using the methods such as .loc and .iloc. Okay. So here in Jupyter Notebook, I've already imported the libraries NumPy and Pandas and went ahead and created the data. So data has three parts. There are two series, which is one is num id that goes from 100 to 109. There is a cust id which goes from c3 to c0 to c9, and then there is a data frame that has three columns a, b and c, where a, b are numeric and c is a column that has strings in it. Now if you look at head of the data frame, we see that these are the top 5 rows, and here we see the indices running from 0 onwards for this particular data frame. Now let's go ahead and see what are the simple ways in which we can pull data from a data frame. So let's try that. So selection, if we type df and square bracket a, here we get the information from column A. However, the output that we get, it is not a data frame, it's a series. So as we can see here, it's a pandas series. Now if we want a data frame back, we have to use double square brackets as shown in this. And now if we look at the type of the output we got, we can check that it's a pandas data frame right here. Okay. Next, we can also use the indices from rows to get the row information out or the data from the data frame. For example, we can use the index 0 to 3. We need this information, so we can give that, and that way we get the information out from the data frame. However, here if we use df.0, that's not going to work. It will give an error because it is probably looking for a column which has a label 0, column name 0, and it's not able to find that. Therefore it's not going to work. Now however, later we'll see that if we use iloc, we can use index of column as well, but for now let's move forward on this part, where as a next step, let's see how labels work. Labels, and we are going to use the iloc command for loc command for this one. Now we can start using the num id. So the df dot index, here we can give the num id. Now if you look at the df, here we have numeric labels attached to our data frame. Okay. So now if you want to pull a particular item from the data frame, let's say you want to pull row number 1 which has a label of 100, we can do that by saying df.loc, and here we can say num id of 0, and that gives us information for the row which has the label 100. And what num id does, it simply returns 100, that is input in this command. So if you, instead of typing this, if you had directly type 100 in there, it would work the same way. So if you type 100, so it will work the same way. Now in addition to the rows, we can also specify the names of the columns. So if we say df.loc and colon, that means we are getting all the rows back, and we specify two column names, say A and B. So when we run this, we got only rows A and B, so the row C is not there at this moment. Okay. Now what if we were to say that how about getting rows by specifying a range of labels. Now that is possible if the labels can be converted into indices. Okay, in this case these are numerics, so that is doable. However, if they are characters, they may not work, but we will check that. So let's say if we want df.loc and we want labels 107 to 109, and let's say we want columns A and column C, so we get the information out. Now if we go ahead and change the labels to cust id, so let's say df.index is equal to cust id. Now we have string as labels, and here if we say df and we say df.loc c8, so this is c8, or we can say c7 to c9, and then specify the columns that we want, let's say columns A and columns B, then it works too, because I think it works because the range is in series. So in series we can get that range out of it. That's what I'm thinking is happening here. Okay, after this, now let's look at how indices work in iloc. So by index, and we say .iloc, and I'm going to use the markdown there. Okay, so if you say df.iloc and you specify 1, so here we get the output, which is index 1. So this is index 0, this is index 1, so we get 12, 2 and B, which is right there. Next, let's look at ranges for rows indices and the ranges for column indices. How does that work? So if we say df.iloc, and now if we want let's say if we want 5, 6, 7, we need the indices for rows. So what are the indices for rows? So 0, 1, 2, 3, so this is index number 3, so we specify 3 colon 4, 5, so 5 plus 1, so we specify 6, and then we have the rows, the columns, let's say we want 0 and 1, so we start at 0 and specify 1 plus 1, so 2, and this should give us columns AB and rows 5 with rows C4, C5 and C6, and C3, C4, C5. So let's see what happened here. Yes, that's correct. So 4, 5, 6, so we got that correct. 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's what we have, 3 and then 6. Moving on to the next iloc. So let's use df.iloc, and here we can specify, say 1, 4 and 7, those are the rows we want, and then we need the columns at index 0 and index 1, so that works correctly. So we get df.iloc 147, so 0, 1, so we have the row which is C1, 2, 3, 4 which is C4, and 5, 6, 7, so we have C7, and we have the columns A and B right there. In addition to this, if we want to pull all the rows for specific columns, as we saw earlier, we can do that. So we can use just a colon and specify let's say 0 to 3, and that will give us everything that's within that range. Finally, if we want to pull only one item of a cell, so this could be one cell which has a value of 1, where the index is 0 and the column index is also 0. And here if we use df.iloc and say give me the value of element at index 0, 0, we get 1. Now if we were to time this, and the command for this is % time it, and if you run this, there is another alternative command to access this type of information, which is faster than this. So here we got around 12.9 microseconds, and here if we use I@, with 00, then we get the response relatively faster as compared to the iloc. So if there are certain situations where you can use I@, it would be a nice idea to do so, because here it's only 7.9 microseconds, it's 12.9. In microseconds it doesn't feel like much, but trust me, when you're dealing with large data sets, this is a very big improvement in the performance of your code. After this, we can now look at how we can use copy command to create copies of the data frame. So copy and run. Okay. So as we have seen earlier in arrays, the same case is here. If we just create, let's say if we create a data frame df2 equal to df, and then in df2 we see this is the data. Now if I go ahead and say all the rows for column A in df2 should have value 999, and say df2, we changed the df2 data frame, correct, but if we look at df, that is also changed. So to avoid that, we always want to copy the data frame if we don't want to change the original data frame. So here I've gone ahead and rerun that cell to get our original data frame back. You can check that, so it's back. And now here if you say df.copy and delete that, now if you change the value for df2 to 999, and if you run df, we still have maintained the original data frame. So this is important. Now if we were to change particular values within a data frame, how do we do that? So let's say if we in the data frame df2, let's pick a position using iloc 00, and we want to make that cell value equal to 0. So all we have to do is give the correct indices of that cell, and then give the value that we need to enter, and run that. So here we see that that particular cell has now changed to 0. Similarly, we can give ranges. All the functions that we created earlier, we can use all of that to make changes here. So if we want to change rows in rows 7 and 8, if you want to change the values for column B from 18 and 19 to say 1000, we can do that. So to do that, we have to again specify iloc, and we can specify the index for columns. So this will start at for rows it will start at 7 and it will go up to 9, so 8 would be before that, so that takes care of the rows. And now for column, we only want the column 1, which is at index 1, so that's column B, and the value we want to set to that is 1000. Now if you look at df2, it should have changed, so we get that value changed to 1000. So that's one way we can change that. Interestingly, you will probably be wondering, can we use labels to do the same thing? Yes, absolutely. So why don't we do that? Let's say if we pull the df2 data frame here and change the index of that data frame to num id, and now the df2 has the labels here. Now if we go ahead and change those thousands to 10,000, can we do that? Okay, let's try. So if we have df.iloc, now it's easy with labels. We specify just the labels. We have 107 through 108. We know that they are inclusive, and here we are going to specify the column name itself, because we are dealing with loc, which is dealing with labels, and we'll go ahead and change to 10,000. So 1 2 3. Now if we look at df, let me put df2 here, and that should have worked, and it did. So we have now changed the values for those two cells within column B for data frame df2. And that's it for this video. I hope you all learned what iloc is, what loc is, and how we can use them to change values within a data frame. This is very important. If you are confused, that's completely normal. When I started, I also had to practice this a lot to get used to using loc and iloc. I'm sure you'll get hang of that pretty quickly. In the next video, we'll continue learning about database pandas and how to deal with data frames. So until then, please share, like, and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.